you know, there was this period, and it seems to kind of past us now, but there was this period where everyone was talking about Gen X and how Gen X drank water out of the garden hose. You know, big deal. What's you know it, and the one actual, I don't know if it was a reenactment or a picture of somebody who was drinking out of a hose. The one thing that I saw was somebody, and they were just like jamming the hose right into their mouth. And I don't know if that's the way some people did it, but where I come from, that's not how it went. All right, you hold the hose out kind of like this. You let the water stream out, kind of like a drinking fountain, and then you just kind of drink from the water that's spewing. Well, not spewing, just kind of. It's kind of like pouring out in a nice stream, streaming out. All right, the water's streaming out, and you just kind of put your mouth up to the stream of water, and you drink that way. You don't jam it into your mouth. What are we talking about here? Anyway, so another thing, I don't know why they're romanticizing this notion of drinking out of a garden hose, right? Like it was some tough, like if you were some tough guy, right? If you did that, because it was not a very cool thing to do. It was not a graceful, thing to do. Here, let me show you what I'm talking about. So, in order to drink from the hose, here, let's say this is the hose here, right? And he's holding on to the hose, right? He's got a hold on the hose. Can you see it? Kind of. All right. It's not the best representation of a hose, but if you were drinking out of the hose, you'd have to hold the hose like this, right? And the water's streaming out this way, right? And chances are you were doing this pretty much on somebody's front lawn, or front yard, let's say, right? It's a little bit better if they had a lawn, but if not, maybe it was in the dirt. Okay, so you would spread your feet out. You'd have to spread your feet out like this. You don't want to be walking around with wet shoes. It's just not fun. So you'd have to spread your legs out, right? And then you'd have to bend over again because you don't want the stream of water to get on you or your shoes, particularly. So you'd have to bend over, right, with your legs spread out like this, okay? And then you've got the hose and your elbow is cocked back like this because you got to hold the hose kind of awkwardly, right? And you're just trying to avoid getting any water on you. And so your elbow is cocked back like this, right? Your head is kind of like to the side like this, okay? And you've got this, and then your other hand is like waving out back here because you don't want it to get wet either. So you're at your other hand, and you're bent over like this, and your legs are spread, and the water's streaming out, and it's just not. You don't look cool doing it. It's a very awkward thing to do. If the hose had been laying in the yard and had the sun beating down on it, and if you started drinking the water too quick, then it would be hot water, or at least warm water, and that was terrible. So you'd have to wait for it with the water streaming out, and you're trying not to get it on your shoes or on your clothes, and you're waiting for the water to get cold, and then you can finally take a little sip out of it, and there's all this water splashing all over the place, and it's getting everything wet, and it's making mud and stuff. It was not a cool thing. It's not a graceful act. I remember there was this one strat body, and it went up, and it was okay. But it had just a couple of cosmetic problems, and again, people kind of picky about the way things look, right? And so this one had it had like a fade or a non-faded spot here, right, where they had a sticker, you know, it's kind of like an oval that kind of fit right here against this curve of the pick guard. And, you know, it's probably, you know, you could probably guess that maybe it was an STP sticker. You know, a lot of people were putting STP stickers on their guitars back then. Now it seems like it's switched over to NASA. Like the most, you'll see NASA stickers very often on guitars these days. But yeah, back then it was STP. And so it left kind of like a mark on there because the sticker was gone, you know. And it had a chip out of the finish out over here. If this thing is here, then you can kind of predict that, you know, that's going to irritate your skin, you know, with rubbing against like a chip, again, you know, right here where your arm slides on the edge of the body here. And, you know, guitar players are generally pretty smart. You know, it takes some brains to play guitar. So guitar players are pretty smart. So they could see that you know, that damage there, and they could, you know, realize that, you know, no, I don't want that body because, you know, that's gonna irritate my skin, right? So I don't want that one. Gonna move on to the next one, right? And so, you know, to their credit, I don't think anyone else bid on it, you know, because like I said, you know, you gotta be kind of smart to play guitar, right? Guitar players are generally pretty smart, but I'm a drummer. So to me, it just looked like a good deal. And, you know, I didn't really care about any of the cosmetic problems, you know, as I've said before. When you get a lot of old stuff or you get stuff that's maybe kind of cheap, you know, one of your best friends can be a little bit of sandpaper, you know what I'm saying? All right, I sanded down the little damage here, and it's pretty thick finish, so there was a lot to work with to smooth it out without going into the wood and still making a nice, very smooth. You know, you can just barely feel this, and it's definitely not going to do any irritation on the skin, right? So there's that, and yeah, like I said, I think there's like a little, yeah, there's like a something knocked into it down here, and of course the sticker spot. This is not something that you normally see on relic guitars. It must be very hard. Either it's very hard to replicate this, or they just haven't thought of it. You know, because this is not. I guess this is not as much of an appealing sign of use. But who knows? After seeing this, maybe they'll figure something out, and you'll start seeing little sticker blemishes on relic guitars. Because I think this is pretty cool, especially because it's shaped like an STP. And there's no guarantee that that's what was on here. But it does. It tells a story. Somebody had a sticker on here, and for a long time, pretty long time, because even in this, you know, bad lighting and bad, you know, filming, you know, sorry about the lighting, guys, and sorry about the filming, guys. Sorry, you know, really sorry. You know, there's a couple of volume and tone knobs in here in white, you know, but then I looked at them and I was like, oh, it's got the gold lettering. I don't know if I'm down with that. That's probably why these are still in here. You know, I want something with black ink in there. But then, you know, but then I still, you know, I was like, oh, I'll try it out with the gold and we'll see what happens. Oh, sorry about knocking the camera like that. So I went to pull off these knobs to put on the regular Strat knobs, and well, here, let me show you. What happened was, it's a push-pull knob. And like I said, it's such a long time ago that I forgot that I did that. And that's another reason that, you know, it's like you think, you know, you used to go, what, you know, I'm so stupid. Why did I do that? Well, you go back and you know, and then once you remember this, just like, oh, I guess I was thinking a little bit back then, you know. So yeah, it's got a push-pull, and at first I wasn't sure exactly what it did. But then, you know, I played a little bit and realized, okay, turns on the neck pickup. And, you know, that thing's pretty cool when you got that, because then you can get these two on, and, you know, that's one nice thing about a Tele is that it does that you know, those two pickups together with kind of some separation. So it brings out some nice tones, right? And so now you can do that with this one. And this one has sort of my preferred pickup configuration on the cheap here, right? You know, as I mentioned in a previous video, I like these MIM single coils from from a certain era, right, where they had those two bar magnets on the bottom, and they're kind of like over. I don't know if they're overwound or if the magnets have something to do with it, but they're a little overpowered. And then these two, I believe, are, well, you can see they're slightly different. I think one of these is a CS, one's a custom shop, and one is just a US. If I looked at the bottoms, maybe that could tell me a little bit more. But I know they're both pretty good pickups, right? If not good, or even very good. Pretty sure that this is just a basic MIM strap bridge. It's got a pretty good sized trem block, and yeah, you know, just you know, something like this. And the other thing too is that I just want to mention real quick here is, and this is kind of interesting thing maybe if you're not hip to this, but you know, I do like having a tremolo, you know, with an arm and everything, but it just, you know, it's just kind of like a lot. You know, you got to take it off, put it on, take it off if you're putting it in a case, you know, put it on, you know, worry about the spring popping out or even just dealing with the spring to begin with. You know, I prefer that feeling, you know, when it's got the spring and it kind of stays put. I don't like it just kind of, you know, the dangling, you know, and all of this just so that every once in a while you can do a little wow, 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 wow. So, you know, if you're not hip to it, you can just put your hand back here and kind of lift the bridge up a little bit. You got to be kind of careful. You don't want to throw it out of whack. But yeah, you can just lift up here using the little screw heads, and that's just enough leverage to do a tremolo thing. I've got the 11s on it, and you know, I wasn't playing for a while, and then I've recently come back, and you know, I've decided I really do like the 11s to the 52s. This is what feels best to me, you know. And like I said, I don't do a whole lot of bending, a little bit, and it's okay. I can deal with the 11s for bending. It's easier. You know, again, I'm a drummer, not really a guitar player, but it's easier to know how hard you have to bend in order to get that whole step. So it's just like, you know, kind of just go really hard, and that's kind of close. And so yeah, and plus, you know, with the thick string, you can really feel the radius of the strings, and that I like that. And it's like scratching an itch for me for some reason. It's just really, you know, when you get your hands on the chord, you know, and you got your fingers on there. And I'm starting to get my calluses back, which is a little bit of a bummer, because part of the reason that I kind of slowed down is that I like being able to feel, you know, with my fingertips, you know, when you're doing little stuff and things, you know. So it's kind of a, you know, plus and minus situation. It's like, yeah, you start building up calluses so that you can do more bends and play, you know, a little bit more easily, but at the same time you kind of lose some of that feeling in parts of your fingertips, and that kind of bugs me a little bit. But anyway, you know, it's a careful balance. But anyway, that's about it for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed it, and have a nice day.